Hey guys, I'm me, James. This is Kendall here, and then today we're going to be talking about the top Heisman candidates for the 2017 college football season. Now, Kendall, this is a pretty interesting season because we have a lot of players who come into the season well known. We're not coming into a bunch of no-name guys or guys that we haven't seen play before. A lot of big-name star players from last season return this season, so it should make for a very interesting Heisman race.
Yeah, we have a lot of big-time NFL prospects that appear to be a part of the Heisman picture. We have a lot of guys that were a part of the Heisman picture last year that are returning, and we have the Heisman winner from last year returning. So, this should be a deep field this year. So it's going to be interesting to see who we have on our list.
So this is how we're going to do this. Me and Kendall are going to give our top three, and then we're going to debate and argue about the guys we picked. So number three for me, I had Mason Rudolph from Oklahoma State. I think Rudolph is a guy who I think comes in a little underrated in terms of the Heisman race. I think that he has a really great shot of the fact that, number one, his number one receiver is back. But not just his number one receiver in James Washington, but also his top three receivers, or three of his top four receivers from last season are back. So Oklahoma State not only has three of the top four receivers returning, they also play a very pass-happy video game offense, which should allow Mason Rudolph to put up a lot of big numbers. I think he's a player that, besides really that really rough outing he had against Oklahoma last season, played really well throughout the entire year. And I expect him to have another strong season this year. One of the things that concerns me, a lot of early road games. I think the Big 12 is pretty weak, but the fact that they have all these early road games means that they could trip up a little early. They have Pitt on the road early in the season as a non-conference game. So that would concern me a little bit, but I think Rudolph is a great choice for a guy who could possibly win the Heisman this year. I think he's a kind of a little dark horse for me in terms of this season. Number two, I went with Sam Darnold. Right now, he's the golden boy of college football. Everyone's very excited about him, and there's not much to dislike about Sam Darnold. He's a prototype quarterback. Right now, I think he comes in as probably the most gifted passer, pure pocket passer coming into the season. He's one of the hottest players coming into this season because he just came off of putting up 450 yards in the Rose Bowl against Penn State. So he comes in red hot. His team comes in red hot. I think he's naturally a gifted passer. I think as a quarterback, he probably ranks as the best right now. One of the concerns, or some of the concerns I have with him, his receiving core is super new. A lot of the guys on that receiving core did not play a lot last season. This year, they do bring back Deontay Burnett, who played great in the Rose Bowl. He had over 100 yards in that game, helped them beat Penn State. But the rest of the guys, definitely a little more unknown. You got Jalen Green, who was a quarterback. He came in as a quarterback at USC. You got Stephen Mitchell.
They have to replace Juju Smith-Schuster, so that's going to be tough.
Yeah, and Stephen Mitchell comes in, who didn't really play much in the second half of last season. He played a little bit in the first half and didn't play all that great. And when Darnold really came into his own, Mitchell wasn't there the entire time. So you're talking about two of their top three receivers really having not had much experience playing with Sam Darnold. Darnold's a great player. He could rise the ability of those other guys. That concerns me a little bit. But I think the Pac-12 is a very winnable conference. And I think the fact that he has Ronald Jones in the backfield is going to help him a lot too, because he won't have to carry the entire load. They should be a balanced team. But number one, I went with Baker Mayfield. A lot of that's kind of chalk. I think he comes in as probably the biggest favorite. But to me, Mayfield's a guy who comes in super experienced. He's not going to be afraid of the moment. He threw for 76 touchdowns over the past two seasons. That's 40 last season. I think that Oklahoma plays, once again, a similar to Oklahoma State, a very video game happy, video game passing offense. His numbers should be there. He has an excellent tight end in Mark Andrews. So a lot to like with Baker Mayfield. He also has the best offensive line in college football. So he's going to get protected. He doesn't worry about taking too many unnecessary hits. So I don't worry about health or him to carry too much of a load in terms of running for his life. The concern with him, similar to Sam Darnold for me, though, the receivers. They already lost one of the best receivers in Nick Basquin, and he really didn't play that much for them even last season. They come Westbrook. Yes, they lost D.D. Westbrook. They come in with a totally new group of guys. Some of these guys are talented. C.D. Lamb's a freshman who can come in and play a lot. Marquise Brown, he was a transfer from JUCO. He's super fast. He may be able the guy that will end up being a factor, but with Mayfield, he's going to have to carry the load in terms of carrying those other wide receivers, similar to Darnold. That concerns me. He also have a very, very high-profile game against Mason Rudolph late in the season. That game's going to be at Oklahoma State.
And a very high-profile game early in the season
against Ohio State.
J.T. Barrett.
So schedule's not crazy, but two very tough road games. And those could end up being the deciding factor for him. If he loses both of those games, even if he has a big season, that could hurt him in terms of winning in the end in New York.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting. I have none of those guys on my list.
This is very interesting.
At number 3, I have Bo Scarborough, the running back from Alabama. Bo Scarborough is a guy that I can imagine having a very Derrick Henry-X type season. He may not get the carries that Derrick Henry got. I mean, Derrick Henry was getting 35, 40 carries a week. You know, Alabama's gonna have a deeper running back core this year. You know, they're bringing back Damian Harris in the backfield. They're bringing in Najee Harris, who might be the best recruit in the country. So it's gonna be interesting to see how many carries he gets. But when I look at this Alabama team, I'd be shocked if they don't go 13-0, 14-0, maybe not 14, but 13-0 or 12-0. And really, it's just about getting past Florida State week 1. And after that, the SEC looks a little down this year. So, are they going to go 2 straight years without having a Heisman Trophy finalist? Jalen Hurts, I just can't trust. I don't even know if he's going to be the starting quarterback all year. The freshman kid, yeah. He's a dynamic quarterback, so I can't even say that Jalen Hurts is going to be the guy all season. So when I look at Alabama and I'm trying to pinpoint a Heisman Trophy finalist, it's got to be Bo Scarborough. At number 2, I've got Lamar Jackson. You know, Lamar Jackson's a guy that I think's being sort of disrespected. You know, I kind of got.
He wasn't on my list.
I gotta Google Lamar Jackson to find out who he is because nobody's talking about him. And the guy won the Heisman Trophy last year. I mean, you look at the numbers. I understand why people kind of soured on him. You know, the team lost the last 3 games of the season last year. You know, they looked uninspired. The team looked uninspired.
It looked like teams started to figure him out a little bit. To me,
that could be it, or it could just be that they were a team that had national championship playoff aspirations. That once that wasn't the case, they kind of folded. You know, they were a young team. He's especially a young quarterback. So, I mean, I can't give him a pass for that. And I don't even think he should have won the Heisman last year. I was always saying that Deshaun Watson I would have had ahead of him because his team was better. But at the same time, you look at that early game against Clemson in September. If they get past Clemson, now, I mean, he might as well write his ticket to New York if he stays healthy because the rest of their schedule is easy besides Florida State. So I think Lamar Jackson's a guy that will put up the numbers. He'll have I don't want to say a Tebow type season, but he'll have those type of gaudy stats where he gets 45, 50 touchdowns if he, plays enough games. And then at number 1, for me, it's JT Barrett, who I think is coming in as one of, if not the most experienced quarterback in college football, this is going to be, I believe, his 5th year in Urban Meyer's offense. And that, I mean, have we seen an Urban Meyer quarterback that's played that many years? And it says obviously he hasn't played all the years. He's been hurt, he redshirted. But, I mean, we're talking about a guy that fits that style in terms of his dual threat ability. Yeah. I think he's starting to improve as a passer. They have weapons. And then when I look at Ohio State, you know, they're bringing back 4 of their 5 offensive linemen, and they're a team that I expect to be in the playoff. They have big games late in the season, right, which I think is always important when you look at a Heisman Trophy finalist. It didn't matter for Lamar Jackson because he won it, you know, in week 3. But yeah. but most of the time, these guys, they win it, you know, week 8, week 9. That's when you have those games. And I mean, you've got Michigan the last week of the season, and then the Big Ten championship game. If Ohio State finds themselves in the playoff, I think JT Barrett quarterbacking that team would. I find it hard to believe that he wouldn't find a way to get to New York and then possibly win it.
So when it comes to your list, I thought about Bo Scarborough, actually. He was one of the running backs I had considered. But one of the things that struggled with me was injuries. He's had knee problems in the past. He got injured in the national championship game. So I was worried seeing that Alabama has a very deep running back core. They could easily pluck one of those guys in if Scarborough's feeling gimpy, that he might not put up the numbers that we're expecting. Also, in the recent modern era, running backs don't really win the Heisman unless there's a very weak field. Mark Ingram won in a weak field. Derrick Henry won in a weak field. I expect to be a very strong quarterback field, so running backs tend to have some troubles. That's why I didn't put a guy like Saquon Barkley on my list. Running backs tend to only really win in the modern era if there's a very, very difficult or very weak class for the Heisman in terms of the quarterbacks. When I look at Barrett and Jackson is an extremely electrifying player. He's one of the more exciting guys in college football, but people don't really give the high guy who won the Heisman another shot at winning it again. It's like the Archie Griffin curse. You know, once he's won it, no one else can do it. You know, Tebow got a courtesy call to New York. Jason White got a courtesy call to New York, but those guys never really were considered for the Heisman. Johnny Football never really considered for the Heisman, even though they put up very good numbers, all those guys. But it's the Heisman is always about the next big thing, the next hot thing, and people maybe feel bored with Lamar Jackson, especially if he doesn't take the next step when it comes to his passing. So I couldn't put him on my list. And then J.T. Barrett, I'll be honest, I was a little surprised when he said that he thought his passing improved last year, because for me, I thought he regressed. His passing numbers to me, by the end of the year, he was a little bit of a disaster when he came to throwing the football. By the Michigan game, I didn't even recognize him. This is a guy who's thrown the ball well throughout his career at Ohio State, but he fell off the rails when it came to his passing mechanics and his ability to be comfortable in the pocket. So I got to see that improve before I can really take J.T. Barrett seriously.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Sam Darnold was a guy that you obviously think about when you put together this list. But I couldn't really consider him, or I couldn't really put him on the list, because when you look at past Heisman winners, generally it hasn't been a guy that's come in as a big favorite, and I think Sam Darnold comes in that position. It hasn't been somebody that plays in a pro-style offense. Besides maybe Jameis Winston, all these quarterbacks that have won have come from an offense that is a video game offense. You know, it's a shotgun, spread offense. You don't really run anything other than that. And then lastly, it hasn't really been, a pure top quarterback prospect. At least a guy that we look at, all right, next year he's going to be in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So that all those reasons are why Sam Darnold, he fits all three of those molds. He fits all three of the mold of that type of quarterback. And that's why I find it hard to believe that he's going to be able to put up the numbers in that USC offense with those new receivers.
Just like how Andrew Luck didn't win the Heisman, just like Peyton Manning didn't win the Heisman. Yeah. He may be almost too good for his own
the expectations for this USC team are going to be through the roof.
Right.
And because he's not going to be putting up the numbers of a Lamar Jackson, he's going to have to make up for it by winning 12, 13 games. Mm-hmm. Andrew Luck couldn't get past Oregon, so that's what hurt him. But yeah, and also playing with Ronald Jones, he's going to take a lot of touches away from Sam Darnold. And then when I look at Baker Mayfield, he's a guy that I thought about, but it's tough because Oklahoma faces Ohio State in week 2 or week 3, and one of those guys is going to have to lose between him and J.T. Barrett. I'm guessing whichever guy wins that matchup is going to vault to the number 1 spot in the Heisman rankings. But this Oklahoma team is not a team that I'm super high on. You have a new coach in Lincoln Riley, so I question whether or not Baker Mayfield is going to be a legitimate Heisman candidate this year. But all three of your guys are very good quarterbacks. But if we were making an NFL, mock drafts, Sam Darnold would be in my top 3 along with Josh Rosen and Josh Allen. So it's tough for me to ignore those type of guys. But when we're talking about a Heisman list, I don't think about
any reason why Mason Rudolph is someone you're not looking at.
Mason Rudolph is a guy. He's more of a dark horse. He has an outside chance, but that is contingent on Oklahoma State being a playoff team. That's the first step. Oklahoma State's got to be a playoff team.
I just think his numbers are going to be through the roof this year. There's no reason. Mike Gundy's offenses are always very pass heavy, and I think
it's the
Big 12. They don't play any defense. I think the Big 12 is down this year. That's why I had 2 Big 12 quarterbacks, because I also looked at the competition. I think Rudolph has some could be some problematic early schedule road games, and obviously Baker Mayfield has that big matchup against Ohio State. But I think those guys are going to have smooth sailing in terms of scheduling. I think some of the guys you talk about your J.T. Barrett. Yes, he has a lot of high-profile games. There's a lot of games he can lose. He can lose at home against Penn State. He can lose on the road against Michigan. Those are going to be very difficult games. And he can also lose against Oklahoma. And Lamar Jackson, I agree, his schedule is a little softer. Alabama's going to run through the SEC this year. But the problem is Alabama guys, I think, sometimes get slighted because they aren't such a great team.
Yeah, when I look at Mason Rudolph, he's going to put up numbers, but sometimes these Big 12 quarterbacks get disrespected because they're expected to. It's like, you're playing the Big 12, you're facing these poor defenses, so it's kind of expected. And then, like I said, Oklahoma State's going to have to be a top 5 team all season. for him to get even in the conversation. And once he's in the conversation, anything's possible. Then it becomes that bedlam game against OU where it's going to be him and Baker Mayfield battling it out. But I think Rudolph's got a shot, but that's contingent on you feeling really strong about the Oklahoma State.
One quick thing I think that will actually hurt both Rudolph and Baker Mayfield. For some reason, the Bedlam game is not the last game of the year this year. It's like in the middle of the season, or like game 7 or 8 in the schedule. That, I think, actually hurts them. I think if both of those guys had a chance to play squared off, possibly for the Big 12 championship, even though there's now a Big 12 championship game, but what could be a game that can get you the Big 12 championship in a big, high-profile, most likely ABC game, the fact that they won't have that at the end of the year could actually end up hurting their chances. But they will have a championship game at the end of the year, so they won't have that disadvantage that the Big 12 quarterbacks and Big 12 players have had in recent years. But I think that does it for our video today. So if you guys have any suggestions, guys, you think we left off the list, I know I certainly liked Jake Browning. I also thought about Saquon Barkley, Trace McSorley. There are plenty of great players in college football. Give me some suggestions of who you think should have made the list, or if you like my list better than Kendall's, you like Kendall's list better than mine. Regardless, we like to hear what you guys think. So make sure you comment in the comment section and make sure you like and subscribe to this page. But for now, I'm EJ. This is Kendall. Peace.